1969. Deep inside the jungles of Vietnam, the United States military launched a classified psychological operation. It wasn't designed to kill, it was designed to break the enemy's mind. The operation was called Operation Wandering Soul. American forces had learned that many Vietnamese believed that if a person died far from home without proper burial, their soul would wander in pain. So the military created something terrifying. They recorded fake ghost voices, men crying, screaming, begging to return home. One line repeated over and over, "I am dead. I cannot find my home." At night, hidden speakers were placed deep in the jungle. Helicopters carried broadcasting equipment over enemy territory. The voices echoed through trees and across rivers, drifting through the darkness. At first, it worked. Enemy fighters were shaken. Some refused to patrol at night. The psychological operation was considered a success. But then, something changed. On the third night of testing in one remote sector, soldiers monitoring the playback began noticing something strange. The audio didn't sound the same. The recording equipment was locked, no one had touched it, yet the voice coming through the speakers wasn't part of the original tape. It wasn't Vietnamese, it was English, soft, broken, and it said, "James, why did you leave me here?" One of the soldiers present that night was Private James Callahan. His older brother had died 2 years earlier in a car accident back in Ohio. No one in Vietnam knew that. No one had access to his personal file during that operation. Commanders dismissed it as stress, combat fatigue, imagination fueled by the jungle and lack of sleep. But the reports didn't stop. Radios began crackling even when switched off. Soldiers on night watch claimed they heard whispering from the tree line long after the speakers had gone silent. Some heard their own names called from the darkness, not shouted, whispered, close enough to feel breath on their necks. One patrol unit decided to track the sound of crying that seemed to be moving deeper into the jungle. They expected an ambush. Instead, they found one of their own loudspeaker units. It had been torn apart. The battery was removed. Wires were cut. It should have been completely dead, yet it was still producing sound. The audio was distorted. Multiple American voices layered together, screaming, begging, and one sentence repeating over and over, "We were invited." The transmission cut off completely. When ground troops arrived at the broadcast location, they found no signs of enemy presence, no footprints, no bodies, no disturbance in the surrounding area, just the playback unit sitting alone in the jungle. Witnesses later reported that it felt warm to the touch, as if it had been running for hours, even though it had no power connected. Years later, declassified summaries confirmed that Operation Wandering Soul was real. The ghost recordings were real. The psychological warfare strategy was real. But none of the unexplained incidents were ever officially acknowledged. Some veterans, who later spoke anonymously, described the jungle after the broadcasts began as feeling different, heavier, as if something was responding, not the enemy, something else. One retired radio operator shared a final detail decades later. He said the most disturbing part wasn't the whispers in the jungle. It wasn't the broken speakers playing without power. It was what happened after the operation was completely shut down. Occasionally, at random bases, inactive radios would emit faint static in the middle of the night. Beneath that static, barely audible, was a familiar line from the original tape, "I am dead. I cannot find my home." But this time, the voice didn't sound Vietnamese. It sounded American. Officially, Operation Wandering Soul was considered a psychological success during the Vietnam War. Unofficially, some believe they didn't just broadcast fear into the jungle. They broadcast something, and something answered.